Hi there, this is a quick tutorial just to show you how to install OpenBSD inside of VirtualBox. I'm doing this on a Windows PC. It's a 64-bit PC. The instructions will be almost identical if you're using Mac OS or if you're using Linux. One of the first things you're going to want to do is download the ISO. There's two different choices and I'll explain it in a second. To get them, you'll go to ftp.openbsd.org. There are a lot of mirrors. Check out the openbsd.org website. So enter the pub directory, go to OpenBSD. The newest version as of this, today is January 10th, 2013. The newest version is 5.2. That came out in the 1st of November 2012. On May 1st, they'll release 5.3 to the general public. And that's how they work. Every 6 months there's a new release of OpenBSD. Okay, so now to choose your hardware platform, there's lots of different platforms. OpenBSD supports quite a few. The two probably most commonly used ones, at least for kind of your average kind of play around with OpenBSD kind of user, is either AMD 64, that's for a 64-bit computer, or i386, which is 32 bits. And I mean this on an Intel architecture. If you're not sure what I mean, just download the i386. It's kind of the foolproof one. Let's open that up. Now, in this directory you'll see there's a couple different ISOs. There's this one called cd52.iso. You'll see it's 6.2 megs. If you keep looking down, there's another one that has, I believe this one has emulation to act like a floppy drive or hard drive for really old computers. Someone might want to correct me on that. I'm not 100% sure. The other one you'll see is install52.iso, and this one's a lot bigger. This is 226 megs. Now, the difference between them is that cd52.iso is really just all you need to get your computer booted up and then get online, and the installer itself is going to grab all of these files here. So things like your compilers, your extended directory, games, your X Windows, that kind of stuff. Install52.iso, it contains it contains all these things. It contains all these packages. So if you're not sure and you have kind of the space to burn, get install52.iso. Sometimes the networking can be tricky inside a VirtualBox, or maybe you have a computer, a laptop with just wireless. It can be kind of tricky to get working, especially if it's your first time using OpenBSD. I'm going to download cd52.iso just to kind of show you what kind of steps you have to take to set up the networking inside of VirtualBox. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this to download it, and it's going to download there for me. Now, an important step, and I mean, obviously a lot of people don't do this all the time, and I'm guilty of this too, I don't really check these, is to check something called the SHA-256 sum. And these are basically you perform a mathematical operation or a cryptographic operation on your file, and only the true exact file will give you this kind of giant string of numbers. So this one starts CEA54. I downloaded a program called SHA-256sum.exe off the internet. It's just usually a GNU. It's GNU software. Someone's just compiled it for Windows. So what I'll do here is, sorry, this is kind of sloppy. I'm gonna move the ISO I downloaded. It's in my downloads directory to my desktop here. So CD, sure, I think it was 2. Yep. Go here. Oh, got Unix on the brain here. Pop over. Okay. So I'm gonna run the software 256. There you go. So if you look at this thing right here, I'm not gonna look at it all. I usually look at the first couple digits and the last couple digits, and you can see it's the same. So now we have our ISO. The next thing we'll do is get into VirtualBox here, and I just fired it up. And you're going to click New. It helps if you have some familiarity with OpenBSD, or sorry, with VirtualBox. I won't go into it too much here, maybe just the options to get it working. Yeah, so, you know, if you have any questions, I'm sure there'll be comments for this video. If you downloaded the AMD 64 ISO, you would use this OpenBSD 64. I downloaded the 32-bit one, so I'm just going to use the regular. Hit next here. How much memory you want to give it. If this is just a play around machine and you're not running X or anything, you don't have to give it that much. I'm going to give it 120 megs of memory. Yeah, no, for the size of the hard drive, again, too, if you're going to install a lot of stuff and you think you might want to try, you know, maybe hosting some sort of web apps or something out of it, you're probably going to want to bump that up. I'm probably going to do 10. That's kind of my default for that kind of stuff. And there's all this kind of stuff, whether it's a dynamic one that grows or a fixed size. I don't think that stuff really matters too much. Some OCD here. So we're going to create that disk to go with it. Now, I always take a peek at the settings for this because there's a couple things that you don't really need. They don't really matter, but they just kind of annoy me. So one of the ones is audio. I don't really need any audio. The network adapter, there are different types, and usually this one works pretty well. The Intel Pro 1000 MT. The one you're not going to want to choose is the paravirtualized one. I believe you need special drivers to work with it, which aren't included with OpenBSD that I know of. Most of the stuff, yeah, just probably the regular settings are good. Video memory, if you know, to tell the truth, I'm not even sure if I've ever done X inside of VirtualBox. So, yeah, experiment for yourself. That's kind of the nice thing about VirtualBox is that you know, if you're careful, just even if you're reckless, you can't really break that much. So actually, one of the things I forgot to do here is for my storage, this is the disk that we created, that 10 gig disk. Let's see, 10 gigs. For the CD, what we're going to do is we're just going to choose an ISO, and I stuck that one right on my desktop here that we moved inside that DOS shell. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to go ahead and start it. It's going to tell me that it's going to steal my mouse. Yeah, that's fine. Move this in the frame here. Okay, so just to break this, this is the OpenBSD bootloader, and what this is this starts the kernel. It's gonna kind of get everything started. When you have OpenBSD installed, you'll see later that this same kind of screen, it looks a little bit different, appears, and someone can correct me on this, but I think the HD0 plus symbol, I think either the plus or the star means that you don't have a master boot record or maybe a partition table on that disk. So it's just kind of giving you a hint that that's a blank disk. Most people can just kind of ignore that. That's kind of OpenBSD trivia. So I hit enter. It's gonna load this is the kernel, and the RD means RAM disk. So basically the installer comes with everything kind of attached to it. Okay, and the kernel boots up, and I believe all messages from the kernel are blue. At least that I've noticed. And it takes a bit of time to run. Get yourself a coffee or a beer or whatever you choose. And it's going to detect our disk. And if you're familiar with Linux, you'll notice the disks and that kind of stuff are addressed a little bit differently. Like WD0, you'd probably recognize that maybe as SDA if you're coming from Linux. EM0 instead of Ethernet 0, that's because this is a specific Intel one. Usually anyways in BSDs I find that the name of the network interface is going to be like the name of the driver. So like on my laptop the wireless is Intel, it's IWI 0 instead of WLAN 0 or something like that. Okay, so it's booted up. You can see kind of the kernel ended here, and it's started the install program for us. We want to go ahead and just install it. That's fine. Keyboard layout, I just have a regular keyboard, so it doesn't matter too much to me. Host name, you can just make it up. doesn't matter. It's gonna test. Okay. Now it's asking for internet, for network interfaces, and it's detected that I have this EM0. That's the virtualized Intel one I was talking about, and there's VLAN 0. Now, don't worry about VLAN 0. I've actually never used it, but I guess it would be possible to support VLANs on top of your Ethernet adapter. So wants to know what IP address. I believe I have DHCP working through this, so we'll just go with the kind of default choice in brackets here. If you had a hard-coded or a static IP, this is where you put it in. Okay, good. So it went out to my, actually judging by this, it went to VirtualBox must have a built-in DHCP for its NAT, and that's taking care of that for me. I don't have an IPv6 address. I've never actually used one at the install process, so if you do, I guess this is where you put it in. Any more interfaces to configure? I don't have any, so I'm just going to go to done. You can type in a root password. Obviously, you know, if this is your own machine, you're kind of playing around with it, you can kind of type whatever you want. If this is maybe a production machine or something more important, you know, obviously think of a good strong password and don't use it on more than one box. I'll just make up one here. And this is asking when the computer starts up, like when it boots, should it be starting an SSH daemon automatically? And yeah, the answer is yes. You know, maybe if you're using it on a laptop or something, you might not want that, but I definitely do. This is asking if it should start NTPD, which is a network time protocol daemon. By default, I don't need one, so no. Now, this is asking whether or not I'm planning on running X Windows on here. And you'll see something strange a little bit later, but basically what it's going to do is, I believe it changes a mode inside the kernel so that X Windows can access either the network card or memory or something. Someone will probably know better and explain it. I'm not planning on running it, so I'm going to hit no, or type no. You can set up a user. That's usually a good idea. I'm not going to do it here. What time zone are you in? I'm actually in Canada Mountain. If you didn't know, you could just hit the question mark and it'll give you a list. Now it's going to go partition the disk. If you had more than one disk, it would show up here. I only have this one that we created. Now, DUIDs are disk unique identifiers or something. They're kind of preferred because they're... I shouldn't say they're preferred. You don't have to use them, but they're really handy because they kind of eliminate problems with naming disks. Now, it's asking if you want to edit the master boot record and maybe create a specific OpenBSD partition, or do you just want to use the whole disk? I want to use the whole disk. I'm not dual booting inside of my VirtualBox. Okay. Now, this is one of my kind of pet peeves, is I've seen a lot of people online, when they do these tutorials, they just automatically hit A, and they don't really talk about what's going on here. What's happening is, in OpenBSD, and maybe this is a BSD thing, I'm not really sure, the C partition is like the whole disk. And you can see that that is 10 gigabytes. That's 1024 times 10. And it's the whole enchilada. What the installer wants to do is it wants to create some partitions for me. The first one being A, which would be 233 megabytes. That would be my root partition, just the /. Inside of that, it's going to create another one the same size. It's going to be used for swap space, which is, that's like when your computer runs out of memory, it's going to start writing things to the disk. So basically the memory's backed by disk. It's going to create, you know, a 356 meg temp partition, 478 meg bar partition, all this kind of stuff. Now, why is it my pet peeve is because I'm not planning on using X Windows, and yet it's going to carve out a 604 meg X11R6 partition for me. Same with USR source, USR objects. I'm not planning on building any kernels on this, so really that's you know, maybe 3 GB and change wasted if I were just to go for the auto layout. Um, I believe you can do the edit auto layout. I like to do a custom layout. Now, you can use the question mark. That'll give you some help with the prompt. I've done this before. I'm just going to go ahead and do kind of what I like to do. A lot of people are going to, or maybe will squawk at me and say that I shouldn't create just 2 partitions, but this is just for VirtualBox. Yeah, if you're on a production system or something, there is kind of safety in creating different partitions for stuff, that in that someone can't fill up a partition and kind of crash your computer or have it, I mean, basically run it out of space, especially if you're not using things called quotas and all this other kind of stuff. But just for the purposes of running it instead of VirtualBox, I'm just going to do it like this. So A, I think, creates a new partition. I'm going to call it A. Or sorry, the first one is A. A creates it, and I'm identifying it as A, the first one. So the offset, just go with the default. The size, I'm going to create an 8 GB one. And yes, it understands stuff like 8G, which is really, really nice. File system type, 4.2 BSD, yeah, that's fine. Mount point, I'm going to go forwards. Yeah, again, this is the whole enchilada approach. Probably not a great idea, but for the purposes of this, it's fine. Now, if I go P again to print, you'll see it's created this partition for me, and this is that C one I was talking about earlier, where it's kind of like the whole disk. I'm going to create another one. You can see now I called it B. Offset, that's fine, it kind of calculates automatically, and I believe that's this plus this, the offset. So it's the offset from the beginning of the disk and the size of the last one and whatever previous ones. Size is fine, I'm just going to hit enter. I really don't need 2 gigs to swap on this, but I'm just sort of demonstrating. The next partition you create automatically defaults to swap, and basically it's, I guess it's a way of reminding you should create some swap space. Okay, so hit print. I'm all done. I got my / partition, my root partition, I got my swap space. I'm going to write, I'm going to quit, and it's going to go ahead and automatically create this stuff for me. Okay, good. It's saying where are the install sets. If you use the install 52.iso, you would use CD here, and basically it would find your CD-ROM drive for you and it would extract those packages. I'm going to use FTP. I don't have any proxy or FTP proxy stuff. You'll notice if you have working network, this will fill in automatically. It'll say ftp.openbsd.org. I believe if it's not, it won't give you that default. So that's a good indication if you're having network problems. You know, you can either just restart the machine, restart the install. If you're feeling really brave, you can use an exclamation mark like that, and that'll take you down to a shell. So anytime you have problems, but don't worry about that so much right now. Server, yeah, we'll use that one. That's luckily a couple blocks away from my apartment. Yeah, we're going to want to use this one. It filled it automatically for us. Log anonymous, yep. Okay, so it's telling me what packages are available on the remote server. Now, I'm not going to install X Windows, so I don't really need any of these. And the nice thing is this supports wildcards. So I'm going to go -x*, hit enter. Okay. Now, the other thing too is I'm not going to actually be compiling any code on this, so I can get rid of it, the compilers. And I don't really need any games on this. And the games aren't like Doom or Quake or anything. They're little like text games like Fortune. So I'm going to go ahead and say, go ahead and install this. So I got BSD, that's my kernel. I got bsd.rd or RAM disk. That's kind of what this is, and it's really handy. And this, I mean like this install program and kind of kernel. And it's really handy if you ever really mess up your system, you can actually go into it with RAM disk, the RAM disk kernel, and mount it and take a look. Base 5.2, that's going to contain kind of all my most of my, well, I guess all my binaries and that kind of stuff. So like pretty much anything that's in the file system when we start will be from there. etc or etc directory, that's going to be a lot of my setting files, and man pages. Man pages are always excellent, especially with OpenBSD. So set names, done. I don't have any more to do. It's going to go ahead and it's going to fetch these. I'm just going to pause the video because this is really boring. Yeah. Okay, and we're back. The installer went ahead and downloaded all these files and extracted them to the file system for us. I don't have any more sets to download. I'll just hit enter. It says the time appears wrong. It actually is 7:50 my local time. There's something weird with VirtualBox and the clock. Anyways, that fixes it. So yeah, now we're done. We can go ahead and reboot. One thing I'll do is I'm going to take the CD out of the drive just because it's easy to forget. And I don't want it to start the installer again. Just verify that got done. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and type reboot, hit enter. And you'll see that boot kind of thing I was talking about will come up. That boot menu I was talking about. Okay, so here it is. Yeah, and you'll notice it must have been the asterisk I was talking about before had that meant that the disk was empty or something. Yeah, you'll see that it looks a little bit different. I think before it said CD boot, but it's essentially the same thing. This will automatically time out, by the way. It'll just go ahead and start booting. I've been breaking it by pressing pause. So I'll hit enter to get it going again. And the kernel will start up and, same thing, recognize all the devices. I find that there is more device support in the regular kernel than there is the RAM disk kernel, just for size reasons. They don't include all the drivers. And we're just about done here. Okay, so the kernel's done booting. It's going to pass it off to what's called the init system, or the RC scripts. You'll see it'll go ahead and it's going to give me a DHCP address up here. The first time you boot up, it's going to generate some keys for you. These are SSH keys. It's going to start some of your daemons, all that kind of stuff. And at the end, you're left with a login. And this is where I didn't create a user account, so I just log in as root. Type in the password we used, and there you go. I'll probably make another video about installing packages, but the man pages are excellent in this. And I mean, they're a little bit complicated, but if you take the time to read through them and read through the FAQ, you'll do fine. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.